When I talk about Team Ico, two of their projects spring to mind. Their very first game, simply called Ico, released in 2001, and Shadow of the Colossus, originally released in 2005. Shadow of the Colossus has seen multiple releases on three Sony consoles, the original on PlayStation 2, as well as the first remaster released on PlayStation 3 in 2011, which saw improvements to resolution by bringing it up to HD standards and other graphical enhancements. Bluepoint Games, which also did work on the 2011 version, has now had a second crack at enhancing this game, which goes way beyond a simple remaster. In its 2018 remake, Bluepoint has greatly improved lighting, texture, and overall graphical quality from the 2005 and 2011 versions respectively, which I'll talk about later on. The game does differ depending on what version of the console you own. For the original PlayStation 4, it's locked to 30 frames per second, whereas with the Pro model, you have two options to play with. You can play with the performance mode, which is dedicated to 60 FPS, providing much smoother gameplay experiences, and a cinematic mode, which causes the frame rate to remain at 30, but improves picture quality. And this is for those who have 4K monitors or televisions. I feel that 30 FPS does not really detract from the experience, at least for the most part. And for this video, the footage and my experiences are based on the original PlayStation 4 version. Shadow of the Colossus has a simple yet effective plot. We begin with a long cutscene showing us a mounted rider with a wrapped body, travelling a perilous road alone at night. The rider stops at a large overgrown temple where he places the wrapped body upon an altar. The rider, simply known as the Wanderer, is spoken to by a voice from above, a deity called the Doorman. Wanderer explains that he's brought this woman to the temple to try and resurrect her from her undeserved death, as she was apparently sacrificed for reasons unknown. He believes that this realm in the Forbidden Lands is the only place where he can revive her. The Doorman tells him that the only method is to hunt 16 colossi that exist within the land, but warns him of a huge cost for attempting to do so. And so, with nothing more, the player is left to go and find the colossi. The premise is simple and leads the player down the road of Shadow's adventure without holding your hand too much, and allows you to get on and enjoy the three core great things about this game: its environmental design, the sense of scale, and of course the colossi battles. In order to find the colossi, Wanderer must use the ancient sword, which when pointed to the sky, it will shine a series of beams, which will come closer together, forming a singular beam when pointing in the right direction of the colossi. You will then use Argro, the black horse which will accompany you for the rest of the game. Wanderer is also equipped with a bow, which will have to be used to hurt and attract the attention of the colossi. But the ancient sword is the main weapon you will use to kill the 16 bosses, by reaching the glowing symbols on their bodies and striking the sword into each of them. Although this combat sounds simple, it doesn't get dull due to the varied nature of the different colossi. Bluepoint's art direction is absolutely stunning, with much richer colours and clarity compared with the previous versions, which used fog effects to cover great distances to help with the game's performance. And so the overall view in the previous games versions was quite limited overall. Environmentally, the game is simply beautiful, from open plains and deserts to intricate woodlands and temples surrounded by water, which you'll be able to experience all throughout Shadow. One of the things that struck me almost immediately was the distinct vastness of the environment and how you feel completely alone. No other human characters are present within the journey, only the woman you leave at the altar at the beginning of the game. The life you'll see from aside the colossi and Argro are the occasional birds and blue lizards, which can be used to gain extra stamina, which will also be useful for climbing the static environments as well as the main objective, the colossi. Other than that, the world is still, with only the wind rustling the leaves in the forests, or the rush of rivers and waterfalls. There are 16 colossi in total, each with different strengths, weaknesses, movement patterns and size. Most of these fights are simply excellent, with some being more standout than others, as well as a couple being quite frustrating. I especially like the fact that the colossi occupied the land, sea and air. Some will use burrowing tactics to try and throw you off, others will be a test of your stamina. Environmental factors will also be key in how you are able to win, or how the game will try to challenge you by making some of the colossi more adept than you in some scenarios. Some of these encounters will require you to ride aggro in order to defeat the specific colossi, which adds a layer of speed to the encounter, whereas those without aggro will be slower and more methodical, involving usually a lot more climbing. In terms of appearances, some of the colossi share a similar humanoid shape, walking on two legs and either hitting you with a held weapon, fist or ranged weapon. Others are more animalistic in nature and can be erratic, which is usually seen in the smaller colossi, which will give you less time to react. Airborne colossi add another layer of challenge, as their mobility is much higher than yours. This difficulty is also seen in the colossi which live in bodies of water. The blend of beast and environment makes the game a great experience to both play and to watch, which doesn't plateau in terms of variety, although some may be dismayed by the changes in pace from travelling to and from the colossi. Another thing to note is there is a setting for the doorman to occasionally give the player hints during combat, should you get stuck. As with the rest of the game, the colossi are all exquisite to look at. Their animations as they walk, fly or try to crush you with a stone sword or fist gives you a sense of how powerful they are, and how small and potentially weak you are as the player, as they are seen stomping and deforming the ground in their path. Most are covered in hair, and it now looks better than ever, appearing more natural instead of layered like the older versions of 2005 and 2011. Shadow of the Colossus also has a fantastic musical score, most of which is played during the 16 battles, which makes the fights all the more epic. Even the music played after the giants are slain is brilliant to listen to, as it completely contrasts with what you heard during the combat. A somber sad score as the energy from the beings slowly slips away, giving you a clue that this isn't quite the hero beating evil story as many games have followed. There is some music played during cutscenes, but little music played whilst travelling to the different environments of the game, similar to games such as Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild, which leaves Link in a vast open world, mostly alone. Whereas Shadow matches that with Wanderer, except he is completely alone for all of the game. So after me gushing about Shadow of the Colossus for the last few minutes, you might be thinking, is there anything bad about this game? And, as always, no game can be 100% perfect, so I will admit that Shadow of the Colossus, the remake, has some faults. These mostly lie within its control methods and how the camera sometimes behaves, especially whilst inside certain areas of the map, and whilst fighting atop of the Colossi. The controls of Wanderer are mostly fine, especially on foot and whilst riding aggro through the large expanses of the game's world. However, certain colossi will be difficult to climb, especially if you've left your stamina as it was at the beginning, like I did by not collecting any of the lizards in the world. When atop of most colossi, they will try and shake you off, and Wanderer will become unresponsive as you hold on for dear life. Some may be annoyed by the game taking away your control, although it can be argued that it was the intention of Team Ico originally, because they wanted to enforce the difficulty of the quest that Wanderer had taken upon himself to resurrect his loved one, and how that the behemoth would easily overpower a man. Animations whilst fighting and climbing will sometimes bug out and you could potentially fall off, resetting your progress. The camera can also sometimes obstruct your vision and making progression in some fights more difficult. Additionally, there are a number of collectible items in the game, some of which are in relatively low traffic areas, which is very intuitive as the player will not go to these locations normally. However, it's there if you want to get the very most out of Shadow. I myself did not do this, as I found this aspect to be the most uninteresting part of Shadow. Hopefully you enjoyed my video on Shadow of the Colossus. Bluepoint must be congratulated on bringing this PlayStation 2 classic into the modern day with an incredibly beautiful remake which has been revamped with excellent art direction and improved mechanics. The pace of the game goes from peaceful serenity while travelling on aggro or stopping to go on foot in the forests and temple structures. In contrast to the 16 Colossi, which for the most part are varied and unique enough to feel like you're playing a game, which doesn't become stale. I feel like playing at 60 FPS on PlayStation 4 Pro will be better than what's available on the base model of PlayStation 4, and may be reason enough for me to buy a Pro at some point. Nonetheless, aside from the intermittent controls and camera, where Shadow will give you some trouble, the game is worth playing for a great boss encounter style game, wrapped in a story with an emotional ending, which I didn't want to spoil should you decide to play. And that's about it for this review / look at Shadow of the Colossus, its great aspects and some of its bad ones. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to leave a like and comment down below on what you think of Shadow. Subscribe for more videos like this, and as always, I've been Geogen, and I'll see you in the next one.